up, we had some habits and some traditions, especially when it came to opening presents. Or even whenever you got something in the mail. You get a card in the mail it's not business mail, it's like a card, and it's a personal card. Or you get a package in the mail, or you get a gift of some kind. We always had a habit. And I don't know how you did, opening packages or mail or other things, but we were never allowed, and we still don't, open them by ourselves. We always have to wait for somebody. Because, I guess it's because it's fun to open things with other people, or we like seeing the reactions when we're giving something to somebody else, and we see the reaction when they open it up, or it's just better to open things with others. So we would always open packages together. Now, I have a couple packages, and I was wondering if, since we're together, could we open these together?
Yeah.
Is that all right? Okay, cool. So I need somebody to open my first one. Because we just finished a box of Cheerios, and I have a new one. So can somebody open our box of Cheerios? Thank you. Can you just rip that one open? Rip open that box of Cheerios. Doesn't matter. You can make it look however you want. What's in there?
Oh, what a rip-off. There's nothing there.
Oh. All right.
Not even a box.
That's a new box of Cheerios. Anybody like Macy's? Anybody shop at Macy's? Okay, Gina.
I got it.
You shop at Macy's. Help us out. Come on, rip it open. And while she's doing that, I have one more too. Who likes Oriental Trading Company? Because all things good come in big packages. Oh yeah. All right, Joe, you like Oriental Trading Company? All right, you do this.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, you can open that up too. Jan, what's in there? What did we get from Macy's? They sniffed us. Oh. There's nothing in there. We just placed that order. All right. We made a big order from Oriental Trading Company too. Nothing? Man. We gotta call the company. See, there's supposed to be stuff in here. And there was supposed to be something in Jesus' tomb. But there was nothing in Jesus' tomb. And see, this is a problem. Because the women who came to the tomb, the women were expecting to do the job that they had already started. Because on Friday, when Jesus died, it was Friday afternoon at some point, Jesus died in that afternoon. They took him to this tomb, they wrapped him up, and they put him in the tomb, and the women's job was to go get spices and oils and rub them on his body. They didn't have time because it was the end of the day, it was getting dark, and the next day was the Sabbath. And so they couldn't do any work on the Sabbath, so they had to wait until the Sabbath was over, Saturday evening, to go find the oil and the spices and get all of them together. And then early, once it was finally light, they could come and finish their job. Now, of course, what they were doing is they were doing what people did with people who had died. They needed to rub them with the oils and the spices because what people really wanted in that time was to bury somebody so that later on they could go get their bones. That's what everybody wanted. They wanted to keep the bones. And if we've heard of bone boxes, there's been some famous bone box discoveries in the last few years in that part, in Israel, that part of the world. And that's what they were wanting. They put somebody in a tomb, they wrap them up, and they wait until the body decomposes. Kind of gross, but they wait until the body decomposes, and then they go and get the bones, because the bones are what they want to keep in a box. So the women are doing step one of this whole process, which is rubbing the body with the spices and the oils so that the body just doesn't smell. And that was just part of the job. Well, the other thing that they did to reduce the smell of a decomposing body is they would roll a rock in front of the tomb in order to keep the smell inside. So they were just doing their job. But when they got to the tomb, it wasn't supposed to be empty, but it was empty. And I mean, this is kind of a problem, and it poses a lot of problems, in fact, for a lot of different people. Because for us, we read the story, and we've heard the story maybe before, we've read it many times, or we've taught the story before, and we know what happens after. But for these women and the other disciples who saw the tomb for the first time, did they know the end of the story?
No.
No, they didn't come to the tomb, open it up, look inside, and it's empty, and say, "Oh, well, praise God that Jesus is raised from the dead, and so he's sanctifying me to eternal life and purifying me from all my sins, and now I stand righteous before the Lord, and I can live eternally with him and share this relationship with others because we are forgiven." I mean, they weren't talking like that. They were talking like, "Where's Jesus?" And this was a big problem. Because what they came to do, they couldn't finish. And they didn't know where to go. They didn't know what to do. And so they started wondering, where is Jesus' body? That's the one thing that they were concerned about. Everybody was concerned about, where is Jesus' body? This is a problem. And so they came up with all these different scenarios. And right away, the most popular scenario, which especially we find in the book of Matthew, is we find that some people are concerned that somebody stole Jesus' body. You know, the Romans were really concerned about this, and so they even put guards at the tomb, which Meredith read about. They put guards there because they didn't want anybody to come in, sneak in the middle of the night, roll back the stone, take out Jesus' body, seal it back up, and just sneak away with Jesus' body. But the funny thing is, that probably didn't happen. Because if you were a Roman soldier, and your job was to be stationed at a tomb, guarding the tomb's entrance, you were pretty intense about your job. They actually prided themselves on being able to guard and secure and do this kind of thing. They were professionals at this work. And so for them to allow Jesus' body to be stolen, very unlikely. So probably didn't happen. Well, later on, as years went on, more recently, we've come up with the idea that Jesus didn't actually die. But he just fell into a coma. And he checked out on the cross. They took him into the tomb. And then at some point, he just woke up. And he realized, I don't want to be in a tomb. So he got up and he walked out of the tomb. That's called the resuscitation theory, that Jesus was resuscitated. And so he never really actually died. The other funny thing about that is that the Romans were also not just really good at security, but they were really good at crucifixion. And they were really good at making sure that somebody was completely dead when they were on the cross. And even we find in the Bible that Pilate asks the Roman guards at the cross to make sure that Jesus has actually died. I mean, they did their job. They know how to do this. They did it many times. So Jesus probably wasn't resuscitated. And there really aren't too many options left. And especially for somebody walking up the tomb, they're wondering what is going on. And maybe God's up to something. Maybe Jesus is actually alive. He's just not here. Well, here's how Luke tells the events. This is in your bulletin if you want to follow along or you can listen. This is Luke's version of these events. Listen for all the different reactions that people have to this. The women, the disciples, listen for how they react, as if this is the first time they've ever seen this. Very early on Sunday morning, the women went to the tomb, taking the spices they had prepared. They found that the stone had been rolled away from the entrance. So they went in, but they didn't find the body of the Lord Jesus. As they stood there puzzled, two men suddenly appeared to them, clothed in dazzling robes. The women were terrified and bowed with their faces to the ground. Then the men asked, "Why are you looking among the dead for someone who is alive? He isn't here. He's risen from the dead. Remember what he told you back in Galilee, that the Son of Man must be betrayed into the hands of sinful men and be crucified, and then he would rise again on the third day." They remembered that he had said this. So they rushed back from the tomb to tell his 11 disciples and everyone else what had happened. But the story sounded like nonsense to the men, so they didn't believe it. However, Peter jumped up and ran to the tomb to look. Stooping, he appeared in and saw the empty linen wrappings. Then he went home again, wondering what had happened. Puzzled, wondering, even somewhat scared. And there's this sense of, what is going on? Where is Jesus? And the only thing that the angels seem to be talking about, not only here but in the other Gospels that talk about this event, what they're concerned with is making sure that people are understanding that Jesus is actually alive. Not just that he's not in the tomb, not just that the tomb is empty, but that Jesus is actually alive. I mean, that's a huge step, because remember, they saw Jesus dead, placed in the tomb. And they go back and it's empty. So to make that leap from, we saw this, and now we see that it's empty, the angels are saying, you've got to think, could he be alive? Could God be up to something? Is there something more going on? And we see this play out. You know, in the pages ahead, after this event in the New Testament, we see that Jesus appears to people in the flesh, really, he's there. He touches people. They touch him. Jesus then commissions his disciples to go out and make other disciples. Jesus charges them to go do things. And then less than 6 weeks later, there's followers of Jesus that are fervently praying because they sense that God is up to something more. You know, that empty tomb, that signaled that God was doing something more. Because I mean, think that if the empty tomb wasn't empty, this story would just be done. Jesus died. It's over. It's done. There's nothing left. And people would have gone on in their own way. But the empty tomb all of a sudden launches this whole new chapter in the story of Jesus, in the story of God's plans. It's like the starting point for this new whole thing to open up that God is doing. And you know, I don't think the empty tomb gets enough credit. I mean, most of the time, most of the year, 364 days out of the year, we focus on anything but the empty tomb. But there's like one day a year on Easter that we do focus on the tomb. And that's not really fair, is it? You know, 1 out of 365, especially for something so important. Those other 364 days, we usually tend to focus on that. You know, we sing about the cross, we decorate with the cross. There's a lot of cross jewelry. I'm sure a lot of you are wearing crosses. In fact, I was interested in this whole cross necklace thing because, it's a great symbol. It's a perfect symbol for what Jesus did. It's very popular. And so I looked up on Amazon to find out how many cross necklace products are actually out there. And when I searched, Amazon searches max out at 50,000 products. And this was over 50,000 products. And you can get any color, any metal, any size, any weight, any kind of cross necklace you could possibly want. So if you search for empty tomb necklace, I did. Guess how many products come up? 10. And they're all made by one company. You can get an empty tomb. But you know, that's not fair, because the empty tomb, look, it launches this whole new phase of what God is doing. It's the beginning of something brand new. It's this inclination that it's not just an empty tomb void of something, it's an empty tomb that's waiting to be filled with something. Because God is up to something new. So what is it that God's up to? It's like empty things, certain empty things, they need to be filled with something. I actually need 2 volunteers. One of them needs to have big lungs, to be able to breathe really well. So I need 2 volunteers. Madeline, would you be one of them? And I need somebody with big lungs. Ben, come on. I tell you, you surgeons, you're on today. Okay, Madeline, you're going to start with Evan. Hey, I have a very special balloon. So this is a special balloon because there's one rule to this balloon. I need you to blow it up. But you can only blow up the balloon in one breath. So, would you stick your mouth in the end? Madeline's just going to hold up that end. Stick your mouth in the end, squeeze over, and blow up that balloon. One breath only. Ready? Alright, now let me help you. Let's open this up. Step back a step. Hold that right there. Both hands. Hold it open. Both hands. Okay, put your head about, your mouth about right here. Now take a deep breath. Don't go any closer. Deep breath. Actually, step back a little bit. There you go. Deep breath. Point your mouth straight toward it and blow as hard as you can. Whoa! vacuum way back here that's not just our breath, but it's all this other air around here that's rushing in. All of a sudden, it's filled up. There are some empty things that just need to be filled. And God is in the business of filling empty places. Because even though we're celebrating and we're smiling and we're having a great time together, there are empty places in everybody's lives. There are empty places in our families, there's empty places in our jobs, there are empty places in our friends, there are empty places. There's things that just feel empty. But God fills those things. Ever since the beginning of time, what did God do at the very beginning? He formed and filled the earth. He filled it with stuff, with people, with plants, with animals, with things that are good. God is in the business of filling. So if we feel like we've got less hope than we wish we had, God fills our need for hope. If we have this void of understanding, we just don't know what to do, we can't make that decision, we're racking our brains trying to figure it out. That's where God steps in. God fills those empty places. I mean, if we've got not enough faith and we wish we had more and we wish we could do this, that's when the Bible encourages us to cry out to God, the one who fills, to fill the empty places. May God, who emptied the tomb so that he could fill other things, fill our lives with the power of Christ. Would you pray?